Welcome everyone to my YouTube channel. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and a subscription. Wish you a good day. Here is the short story My Grumpy Physics Professor. The first class of the new semester. The lecture hall was packed with people, there were no more seats. I was just dragged in by my roommate, and immediately met that cold and restrained face. My heart skipped a beat. He was wearing a white shirt, standing on the podium, his gentle but cold eyes looking through his glasses, stopping right on my panicked face. He smiled gently. The class is about to start, sit down. My roommate grabbed me, who was about to leave, and pushed me to sit in the front row, then whispered in my ear, "Let me introduce you, Professor Tam, my male god." At this moment, his hands flipping through the lesson plan were only a few centimeters away from me, the wedding ring sparkling on his ring finger. It matched the ring around my neck. As soon as I met his eyes, I immediately lowered my head, my whole body stiffening. Help, someone please tell me, why did my fake husband, who was studying abroad, suddenly come back like this? Last month, I got drunk, went crazy and sent nude photos in the middle of the night, teasing him boldly. Shin Tingzhou was very polite, pretending not to see. After I sobered up, I remembered, we weren't close at all. Why did he suddenly land on campus, becoming my physics professor? My life is over. Shin Tingzhou stood firmly on the podium, glanced at me who was shrinking my head and neck, smiled gently. Due to some special circumstances, I will be taking charge of this semester's physics class. I hope to get along with everyone. His deep voice was like a spring breeze blowing by. Painful memories suddenly came flooding back. It seemed like Shin Tingzhou's workplace was indeed at school A. Feeling the attentive gaze from above my head, I shrank my neck. He wouldn't fail me because of my teasing, right? But he didn't say anything more. The first class of the new semester quickly got into gear. I sat right under Shin Tingzhou's nose, listening to his gentle voice, and I gradually began to feel sleepy. At that moment, my phone suddenly vibrated. The novel editor texted, "Xiao Tang, the male lead that professor wrote is so interesting, edit it a bit and prepare to publish it." I sleepily opened the file she sent, but found that the screen was frozen. A few seconds later, a mechanical voice came from the phone speaker. In the quiet of the night, I wore Shin Tingzhou's shirt, rushed into the room in a panic, and threw myself straight into his arms. Professor Shin, please hold me tight. I woke up with a start, discovering that the AI reading function was on. Bold words continuously came out from the phone. The more I covered it, the louder it became. Damn it, stop it. The whole class fell silent. Shin Tingzhou stopped talking, his face still calm as usual. But I felt that his gaze left me with nowhere to hide. I was about to cry, sorry, my phone is broken. In my panic, I turned up the volume again. The AI loudly read the next paragraph. It was indeed the hot climax. The faces of the classmates turned red, no one dared to say anything. Shin Tingzhou gently squeezed the chalk, tapping it rhythmically on the table. The click-click sound echoed in the silence. Finally, Shin Tingzhou said the first sentence to me since returning. "You've worked hard, please come to my office after class." The office was strangely quiet. I sat across from Shin Tingzhou, feeling like I was sitting on a pile of needles, only hearing the ticking of the clock from the corner of the room. Shin Tingzhou was correcting his lesson plan with his head down. The sunset was peeking out from behind the trees, a bit of warm yellow sunlight filtered through the leaves, covering his neat white shirt, creating long, enchanting streaks of light. From the moment he entered, he hadn't said a word to me. He didn't even ask about the novel. Could it be that he was planning to divorce me just because I wrote a fanfic about him? I timidly spoke up, "Professor, I'm sorry, that I didn't mean it." Shin Tingzhou smiled lightly. I understand, it's an artistic creation. I was stunned by his gentleness, and smiled sweetly. Yes, that's right, it's good that you understand. I'm a very conservative person, it was all because the editor forced me to write, those few paragraphs weren't that many. The atmosphere became harmonious again. Tamdin Chu took out a handbag from his pocket, his voice still gentle and polite. I came back in a hurry this time, I only had time to buy you a scarf. I have to leave the shirt for another time. Shirt? Shin Tingzhou's shirt? When I met his gentle gaze, I suddenly realized that he seemed to have misunderstood something. I'm not a pervert. Just as I was about to open my mouth to explain to save my image, my editor started texting frantically. The continuous notification sound attracted both of our attention. Shin Tingzhou really likes doing that in the kitchen? Watch out for the fire hazard, it's best to fix it. But that scene in the office was quite stimulating, pouring water on him and then rushing over, using the excuse of changing clothes to do this and that. How did you come up with that? I abruptly raised my head. I caught Shin Tingzhou's calm gaze lingering on my phone screen. Then he slowly raised his head, looked at the cup I was holding in my hand, and chuckled. Are you going to pour water? The atmosphere in the room became strange. After a while, my face turned red, and I replied in despair, I won't, don't worry. After leaving the office, Shin Tingzhou drove me straight to my parents' house for dinner. My parents knew he was returning home, so they had prepared a table full of delicious food. On the way, I sat in the passenger seat, feeling like I was about to die. The editor texted me to comfort me, don't worry, he's a famous scholar, how could he read our little stories? I secretly glanced at Shin Tingzhou, my heart suddenly beating wildly as if it was about to jump out of my chest. At this moment, he was intently watching the traffic in front of him, his hand tapping lightly on the steering wheel. The neon lights shone on his perfect profile, creating a vivid and captivating picture. Suddenly, the air in the car felt a little stuffy. I think he thinks I'm a pervert. Isn't that right? The editor immediately sent back a screenshot of the last time I illustrated my story by hand. The caption, Professor Shin's usual day when he washes the sheets. The first comment was, I understand what you mean, who can blame a professor for washing the sheets, after all, he's happy. Please explain it to me? Children shouldn't watch adult stories. I hurriedly logged into the website and updated a new status, recently quit, the owner has returned to the country, I hope everyone will slow down and help me. Unexpectedly, the fans were even more excited. Oh, sisters, work hard, climb to the top so Professor Tam can see. Do the boss a favor, and do us a favor. Oh my god, it's like watching a live stream, boss, quickly enter my phone. We're here, there's a car behind. Tamdin Chu's voice pulled me back to reality. I quickly put the phone away and stammered, I didn't write any hot scenes. You saw wrong. After I finished speaking, I met Tamdin Chu's surprised gaze and suddenly realized, he was talking about the rearview mirror. He raised his eyebrows and asked helplessly, what did you write? Oh my god. I blushed and got out of the car without paying attention to the road. Tamdin Chu reached out and grabbed my hand to avoid passing vehicles. The warm feeling from his hand and the faint scent of wood made me a little flustered. Thinking about my miserable physics results, I worriedly said, I will study harder. Tamdin Chu only said, and didn't say anything more. Afraid that he wouldn't believe me, I raised my hand and swore, I will really try my best to study. Please don't tell my parents about my grades. Perhaps seeing the worry in my eyes, he chuckled softly, okay, I won't say. His gaze made my heart pound. Before I could reply, my mother's voice rang out from the door. Xiao Tang, what did you post online? Something like, I didn't dare tell my parents about my love life before, and I don't dare tell my husband about my love life now? I froze on the spot. Looking up and meeting Shintingzhou's questioning gaze, I blurted out in confusion, "My boyfriend is the fanfiction you posted online." Halfway through my sentence, I bit my lip, almost biting my tongue. It was a fanfiction about Shintingzhou, and the hot words below hadn't been deleted yet. Luckily, Shintingzhou didn't ask about that website in detail. He politely called out, "Mom," and my mother immediately changed from anger to joy, and hurriedly invited him into the house. Before entering, I heard Shintingzhou's low laughter. "When I come home for dinner tonight, won't it ruin your love life?" Oh my god. In order to prevent Shintingzhou from finding that website, I quickly deleted all the comments that night. Many readers flocked to the site. Oh my, something big is about to happen. 2 minutes, one more comment is missing, but I've already taken a screenshot. Professor Shin, if you see it, inbox me, it's free. That dinner, I ate with my soul in the clouds. At the end of the meal, Tam Din Chu stood up, and I breathed a sigh of relief. My mother looked at me with loving eyes. "You two go home, it's okay to go home late." I was stunned. "You're going home too? You're married, where are you going if you don't go home with your husband?" I turned around and saw Tam Din Chu standing at the door, holding my coat, waiting for me. It was really like putting yourself in the tiger's mouth. In the end, I was still taken home by Tam Din Chu. After registering our marriage, he went abroad to study. Tonight was the first time we spent the night together. Thinking about what could happen, my heart was pounding, standing rooted to the spot at the door, hesitating to enter. "The master bedroom is over there, your clothes are in the closet. You can go take a shower first." I looked at his seductive curves as he bent down, my face flushed but not knowing what to say. "You take a shower by yourself?" Shintingzhou's eyes slowly looked at me in the darkness. "You didn't beat around the bush at all." I immediately sobered up, rushed into the master bedroom, closed the door, and felt like I was about to burst into flames. I was so embarrassed that I wanted to bury myself. After taking a shower, I went into the dormitory's group chat and kept texting. "How do I make a man fall head over heels in love with me? Roommate, come on, Xiao Tang. Have you started staying up all night? You've come this far and still have the mind to pursue men?" They sent me a post. "I just found out that I've reached the top of the search results. The video of my AI reading the story has been posted online by someone. The comments have exceeded tens of thousands. Oh my god, so Xiao Tang is the little boss. Literature guide, find the new work My Daily Life with Professor Shin. Is she real with Professor Shin? Isn't this realistic literature? No way. That's Shintingzhou. The master of a school who doesn't get close to anyone, but the failure rate is too terrifying, also known as the gentle blade. Xiao Tang is going to die for sure in the final exam. Hoo, give me back my idol's innocence. With that abstinent face, how could he be like this? My personal account was bombarded fiercely. Many people asked me to explain. Some even jumped to Shintingzhou's account to tease. "Professor Shin, Su Xiao Tang, seriously. Look at what she wrote about you." With screenshot. Oh no. They posted my novel and YY fanfic pictures right on Tam Din Chu's personal page. My heart felt like it was being squeezed instantly. It's over, I can't hide it anymore. Right at that moment, Miss Lin Mean suddenly came online and left a comment, but I think Professor Tam is married? She attached a photo. On Shintingzhou's ring finger, the shiny wedding ring was clearly visible. Ling Mian said, "I know Professor Shin's wife. I just talked to her on the phone tonight. My sister said she doesn't know about this." The rumor heated up. People immediately became curious. Huh, you call her sister?
Yeah,
We're very close. She said she hopes Xiao Tang won't daydream about Professor Shin anymore. She's very upset. Oh, by the way, she's going back to the country soon. I'd like to invite everyone to dinner. Immediately, netizens changed their attitudes. Does anyone know Xiao Tang? Please tell her not to embarrass our daughter anymore. The first wife is back. Xiao Tang must be in a panic. The harshness in her tone made me feel a little confused. Could it be that Shin Tingzhou and I were just in a fake marriage? I immediately opened my phone, took out the marriage certificate and looked at it over and over again. A handsome man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Even God cannot deny that I am still Shin Tingzhou's legal wife. The netizens are truly terrifyingly powerful. In just a few minutes, the comments section under Shin Tingzhou's account was filled with screenshots. Just thinking about Shin Tingzhou seeing it made me want to die on the spot. So I decided to take advantage of the time before he could see it, and take his phone to delete all the comments. Half an hour later, I gently pushed open the door to my office, my heart pounding. The night was quiet. Shin Tingzhou sat in front of his computer, the dim light highlighting the deep lines on his face. Hearing the noise, Shin Tingzhou raised his head, saw me standing barefoot on the floor, and frowned. You haven't slept yet? When I walked closer, he finally got a clear look at my clothes, a white shirt. Damn it, it looked like I was deliberately seducing him. I felt my blood rush, my face flushed. Shin Tingzhou's gaze slowly swept across my collar, waist, then down to my thighs, finally stopping calmly at my flushed face. Tang, what are you doing? The pen in his hand gently tapped on the table. The soft click sound made my nerves tense like a string. I was trembling so much that both my legs were weak, and I started to mumble nonsense. I feel cold, so I should find something to wear. Shin Tingzhou leaned back in his chair, his eyes half smiling and half not looking straight at me, then reminded me humorously, "This is the office." I quickly glanced at his phone on the table, gritted my teeth, and sat on the edge of the table right in front of him. I succeeded with the phone in my hand. The desk lamp was blocked by me. Shin Tingzhou's face immediately sank into darkness, and his eyes were no longer clear. A moment later, his hoarse voice rang out in the quiet night, Duong, you're sitting on your physics score. Do you know what this means? I tried to hold my breath, my voice as small as a mosquito's, WH. What do you mean? The next second, Tam Din Chu suddenly stood up, put his hands on the table and pressed me down. Click, he turned off the desk lamp. In a flash, darkness covered everything. I was immersed in the scent of wood. Before I could react, a strong hand wrapped around my waist. His warm breath blew into my ear. You're breaking class discipline. And disrespecting the teacher. Even getting your own homework wet. Really, I've never seen such a stubborn student. His cold voice was mixed with a hint of blame. My whole body went limp, my forehead leaning weakly on his shoulder, almost crying from embarrassment. I'm sorry, Professor. I don't accept your apology. Raise your head, look at me. The words were full of authority, not allowing for refusal, and immediately followed by a hot kiss. Brilliant fireworks exploded in my head. I weakly grabbed his shirt, unable to resist his strength, and finally surrendered. In the darkness, Shin Tingzhou suddenly stopped, his voice a little helpless. Do you really like my shirt that much? I was panting, my body was burning hot, my words were incoherent, I almost thought I would faint here. Shin Tingzhou's phone was pushed aside by me. Suddenly, a dazzling notification broke the darkness. My hazy eyes turned towards the screen. Tingzhou, I'm back in the country, our 7-year relationship should have come to an end. The hot feeling gradually dissipated. I didn't know when, but Shintingzhou had stopped, his gloomy eyes staring at the message on the phone. I was already extremely nervous, interrupted by that message. I no longer had the courage to continue. So, taking advantage of the moment Shintingzhou stopped, I jumped off the table and rushed back to the bedroom. That night, Shintingzhou didn't enter the room. The next morning, seeing the increasingly tense public opinion on the internet, I sneaked back to school. "Xiaotang, my sister said she wanted to see you." Beauty Queen Ling Mian stood in front of me, speaking arrogantly. Why someone else's husband? Do you have any shame?" I was so angry that I went crazy. "Who is your sister? How would I know what kind of relationship she has with Professor Tam? Why should I tell you?" Lin Min glared at me and turned around to leave. After lunch, my editor contacted me. "Xiaotang, your books have been reported in droves. We are preparing to temporarily block your personal account." "Why?" I was sweating from worry. "Professor Tam's girlfriend reported it, saying you ruined other people's relationships." The anger in me flared up again. I took a deep breath and said, "We are already married, he doesn't have a girlfriend." "I've already explained it to you, but even if you two get married secretly, public opinion will still affect your work. Why don't you ask Professor Tam to clarify?" Netizens flooded my comment section again. "Hey, do you like to ruin other people's happiness? Has anyone ever said you're despicable, Xiaotang? He has a girlfriend, hurry up and apologize." In the end, the website couldn't bear the pressure of public opinion and took down my work. My mood hit rock bottom. Actually, I started writing this novel 2 years ago, on Qixi Festival. At that time, couples were posting pictures of their love on social media everywhere. I was stimulated and boldly asked Shintingzhou, who was abroad at the time, to give me a gift. Actually, I didn't expect him to give me anything. After all, there was no emotional foundation between us. However, half a month later, I received a music box sent from across the ocean. The music box was handmade, and a classic rose flower was carved on the corner. I couldn't help but write a short story to record this, while writing and bragging a little. Since then, every holiday, I received gifts from Tam Din Chu. There were lifelike clay statues, sparkling glass cups, and even jewelry boxes that I had always wanted, only mentioned to my parents. Each gift made me deeply moved. My writing couldn't stop either. Every word was filled with good wishes for the future. Now everything was removed, and I still didn't know who reported me. It would be a lie to say that I wasn't sad. But did I have to be shameless, ask Tam Din Chu to make our relationship public and send an explanation letter to the website? After the account was restored, what would he think of those fictional details? Would he hate me, consider me a pervert? At this time, the public opinion on the internet had reached its peak. Lin Min tagged an account. "At Lin No Mac, this is Professor Tam's girlfriend, everyone, don't be mistaken. Come and listen to Mrs. Shin's front row. Everyone, quickly look at the introduction. She's Professor Shin's classmate. All right, now I believe that Xiaotang is daydreaming." Ling Shiremo quickly replied, "I've always thought that a student's duty is to study hard. If Xiaotang can focus on her studies, she will definitely be an excellent student." This news quickly climbed to the top of the search results. This was the first time I had been attacked online on such a large scale, and I was stunned. Tears kept falling, making me look pathetic. I argued with the attackers while sobbing. They even laughed. "Look, she can't take it anymore." I was about to call Shintingzhou to ask if he wanted to go public. Suddenly, a message popped up on the screen. "Shintingzhou at Edu." Opening it, I saw the entire message before my eyes. Next to his red-ticked confirmed avatar, a brand new line appeared, "She's in school. At Mrs. Xiaotang." A photo of our marriage certificate, with the information blurred, was attached below. Immediately, my notification message thread stopped. In the short silence, the comments exploded again. "Oh my God, stop cursing. Professor Shin has posted it on Weibo.
Ah,
I just shipped it and now it's true. Fans of Mrs. Shin, listen to my orders, fight back." My fans immediately exploded. At **** literature, quickly reveal the identity of the reporter, which man lover dares to lock our madam's book. Unlock it now. Lin though Mac was dead silent. Lin Min still hadn't seen Tam Din Chu's post, and was still fanning the flames, but was forced to silence by my fans. Along with that were the sarcastic comments from the people. "I know who it is, it's that Lin though Mac. In the same class as Professor Tam, and was just invited back to work at the school. Could it be that Tu Duong stole her in the middle?" A few minutes later, Shin Tingzhou updated another status. "Each has its own specialty. I find her literary charm really fatally alluring to me." Below appeared a series of excited fans screaming.
ah,
"Is this a disguised confession? Brother-in-law. You must have read the story, right? Which part do you like the most? Professor Shen. I have a screenshot, for you for free." My eyes filled with tears, my heart broken. It was really over. He said that, he must have read my story. So embarrassing. Immediately after, I received a message from Shin Tingzhou. "I've contacted the website to lift the blockade. You write very well, come home for dinner tonight." I asked worriedly, "Have you read my story, and the photos people sent to your comments?" "Time is limited, I haven't read them all yet." I had just breathed a sigh of relief when he added, "But I saw the part about washing the sheets." "You don't have to worry about washing our sheets. Don't worry." Through the screen, I could see that sly fox smiling, luring me into his trap. Ako Obaj Ko. I had no face to see him anymore. That night when I got home, Tam Din Chu was cooking in the kitchen. My face was red. I made an excuse that I was sleepy and sneaked into the bedroom, locking the door. Tam Din Chu calmly replied, "Nothing unusual." The night was getting late. The dormitory chat group was unusually quiet. I tried sending a sticker. Immediately everyone jumped in and started chatting animatedly. Best friend 1.
ah,
Why did you come home so early? Best friend 2 sent a voice message, laughing, Professor Shin can't stand it either. I was like an ant on a hot pan. I haven't done anything yet. I'm afraid he won't like it. Come on, people know who you are, what's there to be afraid of? We're newlyweds, go ahead. Half an hour later, I secretly opened the door to my room. The soft light from the living room flooded in, creating a warm atmosphere. Shin Tingzhou was sitting on the sofa reading a book. Hearing the noise, he raised his head to look. I'm about to take a bath. Do you want to take a bath together? The sentence made my face burn. Shin Tingzhou's movements paused slightly, his eyes sparkling in the darkness. After a while, he chuckled. No need, you take a bath first. The courage I had just mustered was immediately extinguished. I immediately shrank back, hiding in my room with a feeling of shame that made me want to bury myself. Remembering the way he sat in the dark, his long legs propped up on the coffee table, his shirt buttoned up to his neck, he looked so strong. Is it really impossible to have him tonight? A few minutes later, I opened the door again. My voice trembled slightly. Can you help me put on shower gel? I stood there, stiff, my face flushed. Shin Tingzhou paused for a moment before replying, okay. My heart felt like it was about to jump out. I tremblingly closed the door and rushed straight into the bathroom like a prisoner awaiting execution. I even chose a short white shirt that barely covered my thighs. One could imagine how formal this shirt would look when Shintingzhou put it on. Steam rose, obscuring the bathroom. The light gradually went out. A few seconds later, it was completely dark. Darkness fell. Was the light broken? I groped in the dark, gently opened the door, and cautiously stepped out, Shintingzhou. Suddenly, I bumped into someone. The light woody scent immediately surrounded me. The warm and solid feeling of the unfamiliar body made my heart beat wildly. Be careful. The hoarse voice, tinged with a hint of ambiguity in the darkness, stimulated every sensitive nerve of mine. A strong arm wrapped around my waist, pulling at my loose shirt, making it wrinkled. Are you secretly wearing my shirt again, huh? His voice whispered in my ear, his hot breath blowing past, making my hair flutter. I felt something invasive about him. Sorry. I wrinkled my shirt. I mumbled. Shintingzhou's breath made me tremble continuously. The air around me seemed to change, becoming hot, full of desire. So what should I do? He picked me up, his cool lips brushing my ear. My legs went limp, clinging to him, unable to stand. Let me iron it for you. Don't scold me. Shintingzhou laughed. You really have no ambition. Professor. He stopped all my words with a hot kiss. His cold fingers nimbly removed my disguises one by one, carrying a playful tone, pulling me into a sea of passion. I trembled nonstop. I'm going to die. It's still early. Shintingzhou's gentle laughter made my heart beat wildly. Remember what you wrote? One word, 10 minutes, count yourself. That night, Shintingzhou asked me to repeat the details of my story, and he practiced them one by one. Unfortunately, by the end, I was completely exhausted, and started talking nonsense. Tam Din Chu did not force me anymore, but just did as he pleased. The next morning, I could not get up. Tam Din Chu asked for leave for me. As I shuffled in my slippers and opened the bedroom door, Shintingzhou had just returned from outside. He glanced at my strappy nightgown, quietly picked up my slippers, and said, "The floor is cold." I couldn't hide the joy in my heart, and followed him. I don't have class today. Where are you going? To see Ling Shumo. Shintingzhou pulled me to sit on his lap, and explained seriously, Ling Shumo is my classmate. We used to work together on an experiment abroad. Later, I found out that she was a bit stubborn, so we stopped working together. There are some things I have to make clear to her. I was listening attentively when I suddenly felt something strange around my waist. Shintingzhou's gaze became deep, and his large hand slid across my waist, touching the thin fabric, and gently massaging it. The numb feeling mixed with warmth made my ears turn red immediately. I lowered my head and whispered, what are you going to do? Don't you feel tired? I looked like I wanted to say something but stopped, clearly embarrassed. Tam Din Chu seemed to understand what I was thinking. He said calmly, be good, rest for a few days. The new month came quickly. The noisy rumors on the internet were quickly suppressed by the approaching final exams. In preparation for the exams, I moved back to the dormitory. And I decided that I wouldn't see Shintingzhou until the exams were over. He agreed, because after making our relationship public, we had to keep it a secret. I also didn't want anyone to say that Shintingzhou favored me. In the afternoon, I was sitting in class reviewing for the exam when I was suddenly surrounded by a group of classmates. All eyes were filled with hope. Xiao Tang, did Professor Shin reveal the exam questions to you? I was stunned. No. Faces full of doubt appeared. Really? He would let you fail the subject? I looked at the physics book full of notes in front of me, and couldn't help but defend him. Professor Shin is a person who clearly distinguishes between public and private matters. How could he lower the difficulty level for me? With Shintingzhou's personality, if I didn't study hard, the possibility of failing the subject was very high. Obviously, not everyone believed this explanation. Especially Ling Mian. She pouted, "Stop asking, who would say this? We slept together, how could we not help?" The class president impatiently interrupted her, then enthusiastically held my hand. "Xiao Tang, you carry the life and death of the entire class on your shoulders. I hope you can do your best. Please give me a few key points for the final semester." Everyone chimed in, yes, everyone can review the key points, it's very fair. I hesitated for a moment, then said, "Let me try." It had to be said that I hadn't seen Shintingzhou for half a month. Because of studying for the exam, I had only been hanging around the dormitory, the cafeteria, and the library. To the point where I didn't have time to eat or reply to messages. I walked back and forth in the library, texting Shintingzhou, "Are you there?" along with a cute picture. He replied after a while, "I'm in a meeting, what's up?" Through the screen, I could imagine Shintingzhou's expression when he replied to me, the corners of his lips slightly raised, his eyes gentle and calm. Suddenly I missed him terribly. Or, "I'll go home tonight." While I was still hesitating in front of his temptation, someone shouted from afar, "Hey, be careful." I only heard a thud sound, and my whole body fell to the ground. The sound of broken ceramics rang out in my ears. The pain from my arm came, getting more and more intense, making my eyes gradually darken. "What is this? It hurts." The surrounding noise rang out, "Quick! Call an ambulance. A student was hit by something falling from above, contact your family and take him to the hospital immediately." "Classmate, which class are you in? What's your phone password?" In the last moment before I passed out, I called out Shintingzhou's name with a trembling voice. I didn't know how long I had been dreaming. In my dream, I failed all my subjects. Especially physics, I got 0 points. Shintingzhou asked for a divorce. I cried and said my arm hurt, but he didn't care. Gradually, I began to wake up. The nightmare of failing a subject disappeared. Only my arm really hurt like it was broken. Before I opened my eyes, I burst into tears. A cold towel was placed on my forehead, a familiar voice rang out. "Doctor, the anesthesia has worn off. Oh, give her some painkillers. Her right arm will take a long time to heal, this girl will suffer." I opened my eyes in a daze, and a handsome face came into view. I was stunned for a moment, then exclaimed, "Handsome guy, are you getting married?" Tam Din Chu paused, then gently wiped the tears from my cheeks. "You're getting married to me." Hearing me wake up, everyone around immediately rushed over. My mother was so worried that a few new wrinkles appeared. "Tu Duong, it's Mom, do you recognize Mom?" My father was so moved that he cried, "She only broke her arm, not her head." "Tu Duong, it's Dad." When I gradually regained consciousness, I realized what had happened to me. It turned out that day, my hand was broken by a flower pot that fell from the library. Luckily, the floor wasn't high. With a little luck, it was just a minor fracture. Shintingzhou gave me some painkillers and then went out. My parents sat with me in the room, feeding me fruit. My eyes were glued to the door. "What is Shintingzhou doing?" My mother smiled and said, "The police are here, he went to find out what happened. This girl really can't leave her husband's side for even a second." My face was red. After eating the fruit, I made an excuse to go for a walk, then sneaked in the direction Shintingzhou left. Near the emergency exit, I heard Shintingzhou's voice. His originally gentle voice carried a hint of coldness. "The cameras on those floors haven't been turned on for a long time, so I understand your difficulties." The police officer was a little helpless. "Currently, there are only cameras in the entrance area. which are not enough evidence. Okay, I understand, it's been hard for you guys. You already have someone to suspect, right? Shin Tingzhou smiled, but there was no warmth in it. There's no evidence yet, I won't accuse anyone. After he finished speaking, he saw me standing at the door. Sorry, I have something to do. He took my hand and pulled me back to the ward. I asked in a low voice, can't find the culprit? Shin Tingzhou nodded, leave it to me. I squeezed his hand tightly and said worriedly, don't act rashly, it was probably just an accident. Xiao Tang, because of this accident, you might miss your final exams, or even fail a year. When your friends graduate, you won't even be able to take a yearbook photo with them. His words made me silent. I lowered my head and said nothing. Shin Tingzhou lifted my face up, looked straight into my red eyes, and said word by word, I won't let you suffer, trust me. At that moment, he was even more radiant than the moon in the sky. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital and went home to rest. This accident had caused a stir in the whole school. The school had bought a series of surveillance cameras. They even banned students from studying near outdoor buildings. Today, the class president and a few important class leaders came to visit me. Everyone's faces were pale, their breathing was weak, and they spoke in circles before they could say, I wish you a speedy recovery. Only then did I suddenly remember.
Oh no.
I seemed to have forgotten about the matter of asking for the exam credits. But Shin Tingzhou seemed to be very busy these days. That night, when Shin Tingzhou returned home, he discovered that the guest lights in the living room were not turned on. The sun had already set. Only the floor lamp in the corner of the wall emitted a dim light. I'm back. I sat at the dining table, lit candles on the table. The candlelight quickly lit up a corner of the table, and the cute bear-shaped apron on me. Shin Tingzhou paused slightly, his eyes darkened, like the thick darkness in the forest, occasionally flashing a few rays of light. Tang Tang, what are you doing? My face was red, and I said awkwardly, I cooked for you. Shin Tingzhou took off his coat, looked away, and slowly took off his watch on his hand, but it seems like I only squeezed a cup of orange juice. The noodles are in the kitchen. I seemed to suddenly remember something, and quickly turned around and ran into the kitchen. But the next second, I was hugged by a strong arm, turned around, and pressed against the kitchen door. Shin Tingzhou's laughter rang out, you're cooking while dressed like this? The cold feeling from the glass door passed straight through my back. But it couldn't dispel the heat on my body. My heart was pounding like a drum, and my hand handed the apron string to him. You don't like it? He slowly lowered his head and kissed my lips. The familiar scent, the familiar temperature, and the familiar kiss. We were entangled in the hazy atmosphere, the pale yellow light coming through the glass door, becoming even more hazy. I sat on the kitchen counter, the sound of trickling water ringing in my ears, my body trembling. Professor, you have to be a little more restrained. Shin Tingzhou's hoarse voice came through, perhaps it was a mistake for me to accept to be your physics teacher this semester. Because it seems to give someone a reason to bully me, right? I almost drowned in the wet waves of emotions. Shin Tingzhou did not hold back. Do you still want me to be moderate, Tang Tang? I was mesmerized, my eyes glued to his lips. No need. That gentle and enchanting face immediately dispelled all my thoughts. I held on to his shoulders, stammering, center. Center? Shin Tingzhou laughed, but it seems like I can't take it anymore. I was panting, my face flushed, my eyes filled with blurry tears, almost begging. I said, center, physical center, isn't this the physical center? Shin Tingzhou chuckled, breaking all my weak resistance. Before I could react, I was swallowed by the wave of desire, like a drowning person clinging to his arm, trying to surface, but every time he pulled me back into the waves of joy, only knowing how to cry and beg. Outside, the moonlight had already set. In the sink, the water reflected the clear moonlight, the water flowed down rapidly, the water splashed everywhere. When the water was full, it overflowed at a certain moment. The moonlight reflected in the sink broke apart. It turned into countless pieces of sparkling stars in the night sky. They spread out, soaking and sticking everywhere. Tang tang, let's go to the bedroom. That night, the moon broke into thousands of pieces of light. It could not be put back together again. I lay on the large bed in the bedroom, next to Shinting Chu. Breathing weakly. I want the focus. Shinting Chu gently kissed my forehead. Don't worry, I sent the focus to the class president a long time ago. Tonight is not a transaction between you and me. This is me falling in love with you. A few days later, I was jumping around like a bird out of a cage, determined to return to the dormitory. Because I kept feeling that Shinting Chu's gaze towards me was no longer innocent. And I had no strength to resist. As long as he gently tempted me, I would fall into his trap. Duong, how are you studying for your exams? I shivered when I saw Shinting Chu standing on the podium. No one could be more perverted than Shinting Chu, who liked to test my specialized knowledge at special times. Therefore, knowledge always crept into my head in extremely perverted ways. Less than a few days later, the list of people who created the questions was announced. The head of the group that created the questions was Shinting Chu. The deputy group was Lingtho Mak, the physics teacher of the class next door. I only found out about this when I returned to school recently. My roommate asked, "Aren't you worried? What if Lingtho Mak keeps pestering your Professor Shin?" My face turned pale. I'm more worried about my final exam score. Because I knew that Shinting Chu wouldn't hold back. This information was like a sword of Damocles hanging over my head, making the atmosphere in the classroom tense. On the contrary, Ling Mian was extremely leisurely, sleeping every day until she naturally woke up. The focus that the class monitor sent her was never opened. Every time she saw me burying my head in my studies, Ling Mian would start to make sarcastic remarks. What are you pretending for? Didn't Professor Shin help you? After saying this many times, rumors eventually began to spread throughout the school. People rumored that Shinting Zhou had leaked the exam questions to me. This rumor reached its peak just a week before the exam. Many university students were pushed to their limits by the pressure of the exam, and began to vent their anger online. Is the rumor true? Do you know how difficult physics is this time? If there is such a person, I will report him immediately. That's right, can you be a little fair? People from the department can get the questions, but we are just trash? Many people even came under my post to say sarcastic words. I heard that the main point is you asking? Indeed, a wife is still more beneficial than a student. Everyone, try to love your teachers. Don't dirty my eyes anymore, it's really poisonous wind. Because of this, Tam Din Chu couldn't avoid being implicated. That night, I posted a serious statement. Teacher Tam always separates public and private matters, and doesn't reveal any exam questions to me. I hope everyone stays calm and prepares for the final exam. I'm just like you. My classmates also quickly spoke up. Please don't cause trouble anymore. Can't you see the main point? Study hard, or else you'll lose the main point and die together? That's right. Even if you have a main point, you still drag in male-female love affairs. So where did the main points of the previous courses come from? That's right, I'm telling you guys from other schools. Each of your subjects has a main point. Can I accuse your school of having an improper teacher-student relationship? The class president even commented one by one to reply, looking extremely pitiful. At Fresh Wind, the point is I ask. At Strawberry Milk Candy, the point is I ask. At clear soup, little Tang, just ignore it, I'll take care of the point. At all, has anyone invited me to drink milk tea? Other classes who asked for the point also invited me to drink strawberry shaved ice, a new dish, it will be gone in a few days, anticipating icon. But no one bothered to reply to her. I invited the class president to drink milk tea. Then I continued to rush into intense exam preparation. Every day I woke up earlier than a chicken and slept later than a dog. It was all because I was determined to get high scores, not wanting to make Shinting Chu feel awkward about my final grade. I swear that I have never studied so hard. When I crammed knowledge into my head, I suddenly felt an unprecedented joy. So this is what it feels like to be a top student. Tang, what are you daydreaming about? I looked at my roommate and said dreamily, I think I've fallen in love with studying. Another crazy person. As soon as the New Year's Day was over, the exams quickly began. When I walked out of the exam room, it started to snow. I stomped my feet in the snow excitedly, then texted Shinting Chu, will you let me go easy on you? The exam was too easy. But he didn't reply. He must be busy. I was about to put my phone away and go to the cafeteria to eat, when my roommate pulled me back. Tang, quickly look at this post. Your Professor Shen is in trouble. I picked up the phone from her, and a large line of text immediately caught my eye. A university's physics professor is suspected of leaking the final exam and has been reported. A few minutes ago, the school posted an official announcement. Regarding the school teacher's improper relationship with a student and the alleged leaking of the final exam, the school has set up a special investigation team. Please students stay calm, do not spread rumors, and wait for the results. My heart was hanging in the air. Because in the comments section, someone had posted a photo. It was a photo of Shinting Zhou and me when he took me to see the maple leaves a month ago, while I stood on my tiptoes to kiss him. Is this the couple? In the school, these two are the only ones in a teacher-student relationship, so leaking the exam questions is probably them. Someone help this poor student with physics. I'm going crazy. The school must give me an answer. A series of angry reactions erupted in the comments section. Many students who had just left the exam room glared at me. Now I understood why he didn't reply to my message. I called Shinting Zhou, but only heard a busy tone. I called several times, but it was the same. Tang, he seems to be in the administrative building. My roommate's words were left behind as I ran straight to the administrative building. The security guard at the door stopped me without hesitation. Sorry, you can't enter without an appointment. My roommate ran over and pulled me back. Tang, you didn't sleep last night, and you have an exam tomorrow morning. Can you go home and rest? My head was buzzing in the cold wind. I gave my friend a scarf and patted her on the shoulder. I just want to see the principal to explain. You go home first. I didn't wait for the principal, but waited for Shinting Zhou to walk out of the door. In the middle of the blinding snow. He was wearing a dark coat, his face cold as ice, walking towards me. He looked like he had just had an argument with someone. He slammed the door quite loudly. I watched him walk up to me, his eyes red. Why did they do that? Who reported me? Let me go see the principal and explain. Tamdin Chu pulled me into his arms, covering my head with a warm towel. The steady, strong beating of his heart rang in his ears. It's not your fault, be good, go back and prepare for the next exam. His voice was gentle. In the snowy wind, it brought a sense of security. A colleague standing behind him sighed. Din Chu, why did you argue with the principal? Not caring about the health of the students, suddenly organizing a re-exam just to calm public opinion, shouldn't I argue? This was the first time I saw Tamdin Chu so stubborn. He held me tightly in his arms, as if afraid that I would be hurt by this matter. The other person wiped his sweat. Actually, letting Tu Duong retake the exam is the best way. The D exam was made by Ms. Lin though Mac, there shouldn't be any problems. Shin Tingzhou coldly replied, Teacher Huang, I can use my honor and career to ensure that Xiao Tang took the test herself. She doesn't need to retake Ling Shumo's bias test. I was surprised. Could it be that the accuser was Miss Ling? Not knowing where I got the courage from, I raised my head and said, I want to retake the test. Shin Tingzhou said, no need, go to sleep. I ignored him, escaped from his arms and said, Professor Huang, I agree to retake the test, but on one condition, Ling Mian must also participate. Professor Huang was surprised. Why? I accused Ling Shumo of revealing the test to Ling Mian. At first, I didn't want to talk about this. One night last week, in the bathroom, I heard Ling Mian calling Ling Shumo. Sister Shumo, are you sure it's test A? Then I'll memorize it. I didn't have my phone with me at the time, so I had no evidence. Shin Tingzhou didn't persuade me anymore. He led me to the investigation team. The principal frowned. These are two different things. Everyone's attention is focused on Xiao Tang. There's no need to drag other students into this. Shin Tingzhou smiled slightly. If the accusation doesn't need evidence, just public opinion is enough to convict, then I think everyone should handle it fairly. You think that Ling Mian doesn't need to retake the exam, so do you need me to officially denounce her as a professor? The principal became serious. Tingzhou, false accusations will result in dismissal. Can you take responsibility for your words? I can. From beginning to end, he never asked me a single question like, is it true? When Ling Mian was called, her face was pale. Ling Shimo also came. When she saw Ling Mian, her eyes flashed with panic. Ting Chu, what are you guys doing? Ling Mian can't do that, her test results are just average. Shin Ting Chu looked up from Ling Mian's test paper. Unfortunately, Xiao Tang and Ling Mian's test papers both got close to the maximum score. The investigation team has agreed that both of them need to retake the test. Ling Shimo was silent, a look of annoyance appearing between her eyebrows. I sat quietly at the table, staring at the words question D on the test paper, not saying a word. People said that this test was done hastily, and Ling Shimo had put in a lot of effort. But at a glance, most of the test paper was questions that weren't in the main focus. The air conditioning was on in the room and it was warm. I had studied so much that I stayed up all night for several days in a row. My face was pale. Feeling his worried gaze from afar, I looked up and smiled at him, then picked up my pen and started a new test. During the 90 minutes, Lin Min looked up at me several times, her eyes filled with panic. Being severely scolded by the invigilator in front of everyone, she stared at the test paper in shock, not daring to move. I finished the test before the bell rang. The principal calmly said, "Okay, you guys go back and wait for the results." I nodded, yes. Tam Din Chu handed me a cup of warm water, gently rubbed my head and said, "Leave the rest to me. I've already ordered food for you and your roommate. Remember to eat before going to bed." I saw the dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired. It seemed like he hadn't gotten enough rest either. When we were downstairs, I hugged him tightly and said sadly, "Don't let them off, okay? Don't worry, I'll get justice." I passed out as soon as I got back to the dormitory. Luckily, my English was pretty good, so I didn't need to study before the exam. The next day, my roommate dragged me straight to the exam room. On the way, my classmates looked at me with admiration. I didn't understand what was going on. When the exam was over, my roommates gathered around me and chattered. Duong, you know, you're really cool." "What?" They shoved the forum post straight into my face. After investigation, the accusation of leaking the exam questions was true. The culprit was lecturer Lynn Nomack, who was suspended from work. Student Lynn Mean had her final exam results cancelled, recorded as a serious error, and was held back. Currently, the physics exam results of student Kok Tu Duong have been announced twice. Test A, 99 points. Test D, 92 points. There was no cheating, the results are recognized, the highest score will be included in the final exam results. My roommate's face was red with excitement. The D exam just came out, the top students were speechless. Because they were all questions outside the curriculum. The A and D exams almost covered the entire textbook. Did you really learn them all, Tang Tang? Oh my god, we finally have a top student in our class. I stared at the news, watched for a long time, then suddenly burst into laughter and cried like an idiot. I had always been stubborn since I was young. The more people looked down on me, the more I wanted to prove that I was not bad. So this time when I reviewed, I did not miss anything other than the main points. Reality proved that Shintingzhou was completely merciless. The failure rate this year was still at the top of the list, and the sound of lamentations echoed everywhere. It was just that the style of comments under my posts had changed. 99 points, the first person to survive Professor Shin's hands and score close to the maximum. Is this the master's strength? We only had to endure one test, but she took it twice. Madam, please accept my bow. The chaotic exam week finally came to an end. Students began to have free time, and they all went to the forum to eat melons. Someone summarized the whole incident from beginning to end. So Lynn Nomack is the third person? She wanted to do it, but never succeeded. Professor Tam didn't pay any attention to her. Seriously, what's wrong with her, always thinking of herself as the teacher's wife? I even thought it was real. Lynn Mean is also a joke. If she didn't perform comedy during TET, I wouldn't bother watching. A few days later, Lynn Nomack was suddenly arrested by the police for investigation. The people were in an uproar. Lynn Nomack is just committing academic fraud. I don't know who she offended, but they even investigated her thesis. It's all fake data. I heard that while talking to the investigation team, she accidentally said something wrong. Do you know about the incident of dropping an object from a high place at University A? She was the culprit. Shintingzhou and I rejected Ling Shumo's offer of reconciliation. Darkness gradually fell, the last ray of sunset disappeared outside the window. Shintingzhou held the box in one hand, and held my hand in the other, as we walked out of the office. I looked at the familiar scene outside the window, chatting enthusiastically, then suddenly fell silent. For a moment, I suddenly felt empty. I didn't expect a semester to have passed. Shintingzhou would quit his job starting next semester. He stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" I suddenly felt reluctant. What if I go back to being a bad student next semester? Shintingzhou lowered his head to look at me, his voice warm and gentle. You study hard just because you like me? It seems so. After saying that, I was a little worried. Do you think I'm shallow? Shintingzhou smiled gently. No, if that's your motivation to study right now, I'm willing to give all my love to help you. At that moment, I looked at Shintingzhou, my heart pounding. My eyes started to sting. Can't you really stay another semester? Shintingzhou leaned down to kiss me. Even though I really want to, but university shouldn't be a place to breed rumors. I hope you can study without being distracted and learn something valuable. Outside the window, snow began to fall. Shintingzhou's countless awards and diplomas were scattered in the back seat of the car. The air conditioning was warm in the car. His slender hand slowly slid into my short skirt, his cold fingertips gently brushing past, like creating ripples on the surface of a lake. I'm glad you didn't sit on the homework this time. His soft chuckle made my face flush. My body was almost pressed against his muscular body. You don't say any more. I was completely captivated by his gentle words. The trophies on the back seat reflected the neon lights, creating shimmering streaks of light. I saw that behind that gentle shell was a deep and stormy person. What to do? I liked him more and more. The New Year's Day just ended, and the exams quickly began. When I walked out of the exam room, it was already snowing. I stomped my feet in the snow excitedly, then texted Shintingzhou, will you let me off easy? The exam was too easy. But he didn't reply. He must be busy. I was about to put my phone away and go to the cafeteria to eat, but my roommate pulled me back. Tang, quickly look at this post. Your Professor Shin is in trouble. I picked up the phone from her, and a large line of text immediately caught my eye. A university's physics professor is suspected of leaking the final exam and has been reported. A few minutes ago, the school posted an official announcement regarding the school's teacher having an improper relationship with a student and being accused of being involved in leaking the final exam. The school has set up a special investigation team. Please calm down, don't spread rumors, and wait for the results. My heart felt like it was hanging in the air. Because in the comments section, someone posted a photo. It was a photo of Shintingzhou and me when he took me to see the maple leaves a month ago, while I stood on my tiptoes to kiss him. Is this the couple? In the school, these two are the only ones in a teacher-student relationship. Revealing the exam questions is probably them. Someone help this poor student with physics. I'm going crazy. The school must give me an answer. A series of angry reactions erupted in the comments section. Many students who had just left the exam room glared at me. Now I understood why he didn't reply to my messages. I called Shintingzhou, but only heard a busy tone. I called several times, but it was the same. Duong, he seems to be in the administrative building. My roommate's words were left behind as I ran straight to the administrative building. The security guard at the door stopped me without hesitation. Sorry, you can't enter without an appointment. My roommate ran over and pulled me back. Tang, you didn't sleep last night, and you have an exam tomorrow morning. Can you go home and rest? My head was buzzing in the cold wind. I gave my friend my scarf and patted her on the shoulder. I just want to see the principal and explain. You go home first. I didn't wait for the principal, but waited for Shintingzhou to come out of the door. In the midst of the blinding snow. He was wearing a dark coat, his face as cold as ice, walking towards me. He looked like he had just argued with someone. He slammed the door shut quite loudly. I watched him walk towards me, my eyes red. Why did they do that? Who reported me? Let me go see the principal and explain. Shintingzhou pulled me into his arms, covering my head with a warm towel. The steady, strong beating of his heart rang in my ears. It's not your fault, be good, go home and prepare for the next exam. His voice was gentle, in the snowy wind it brought a sense of security. A colleague standing behind him sighed. Tingzhou, why did you argue with the principal? Not caring about the health of the students, suddenly organizing a re-exam just to calm public opinion, shouldn't I argue? This was the first time I saw Shintingzhou so stubborn. He held me tightly in his arms, as if he was afraid that I would be hurt by this. The other person wiped his sweat. Actually, letting Xiaotang retake the exam is the best way. The D exam was made by Ling Xuemo, there shouldn't be any problems. Shintingzhou coldly replied, Teacher Huang, I can use my honor and career to ensure that Xiaotang took the exam herself. She doesn't need to retake Ling Xuemo's biased exam. I was surprised. Could it be that the accuser was Ling Xuemo? Not knowing where I got the courage from, I raised my head and said, I want to retake the exam. Ting-chu said, "No need, go to sleep." I ignored him, escaped from his arms and said, "Professor Huang, I agree to retake the exam, but on one condition, Ling Mian must also participate." Professor Huang was surprised. Why? I accused Ling Shuemo of revealing the exam to Ling Mian. At first, I didn't want to talk about this. One night last week, in the bathroom, I heard Ling Mian calling Ling Tho Mac. "Sister Tho Mac, are you sure it's an A exam? Then I'll memorize it." I didn't have my phone with me at the time, so I had no evidence. Ting-chu didn't try to convince me anymore. He led me to the investigation team. The principal frowned. "These are two different things. Everyone's attention is focused on Tu Duong. There's no need to drag other students into this." Ting-chu smiled slightly. "If the accusation doesn't need evidence, just public opinion is enough to convict, then I think everyone should handle it fairly. You think that Ling Mian doesn't need to retake the exam, so do I need to make an official accusation as a professor?" The principal became serious. "Din Chu, false accusations will result in dismissal. Can you take responsibility for your words?" "I can." From beginning to end, he never asked me a single question like, "Is it true?" When Ling Mian was called, her face was pale. Ling Shuemo also arrived. When she saw Ling Mian, her eyes flashed with panic. "Ting-chu, what are you guys doing? Ling Mian can't do that, her test results are just average." Ting-chu looked up from Ling Mian's test paper. Unfortunately, Xiao Tang and Ling Mian's test papers both got close to the maximum score. The investigation team has agreed that both of them need to retake the test. Ling Shuemo was silent, a look of annoyance appearing between her eyebrows. I sat quietly at the table, staring at the words D on the test paper, not saying a word. People said that this test was done hastily. Lin Tho Mac had put in a lot of effort. But at a glance, most of the tests were questions that were not in the main focus. The room was warm and air-conditioned. I had studied so hard that I had stayed up all night for many days. My face was pale. Feeling his worried gaze from afar, I looked up and smiled at him, then picked up my pen and started a new test. During the 90 minutes, Lin Min looked up at me many times, her eyes filled with panic. Having been severely scolded by the monitoring team in front of everyone, she stared at the test paper in a daze, not daring to move. I finished the test before the bell rang. The principal calmly said, "Good, you guys go back and wait for the results." I nodded, yes. Tam Din Chu handed me a cup of warm water, gently rubbed my head and said, "Leave the rest to me. I've already ordered food for you and your roommate, remember to eat before going to bed." I saw dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, it seemed like he hadn't rested enough. When we were downstairs, I hugged him tightly, sadly saying, "Don't let them off, okay? Don't worry, I'll get justice." I passed out as soon as I got back to the dormitory. Luckily, my English was pretty good, so I didn't need to study before the exam. The next day, my roommate dragged me straight to the exam room. On the way, my classmates looked at me with admiration. I didn't understand what was going on. When the exam was over, my roommates gathered around me and chattered. "Duong Duong, you know, you're really cool." "What?" They shoved the forum post straight into my face. After investigation, the accusation of leaking the exam questions was true. The culprit was lecturer Lin Tho Mac, who was suspended from work. Student Lin Min had her final exam results cancelled, recorded as a serious error, and was held back. Currently, the physics exam results of student Kok Tu Duong have been announced twice. Test A, 99 points. Test D, 92 points. There was no cheating, the results are recognized, the highest score will be included in the final exam results. My roommate's face was red with excitement. The D exam just came out, the top students were speechless. Because they were all questions outside the curriculum. The A&D exams almost covered the entire textbook. Did you really learn them all, Tang Tang? Oh my god, we finally have a top student in our class. I stared at the news, watched for a long time, then suddenly burst into laughter and cried like an idiot. I had always been stubborn since I was young. The more people looked down on me, the more I wanted to prove that I was not bad. So this time when I reviewed, I did not miss anything other than the main points. Reality proved that Shintingzhou was completely merciless. The failure rate this year was still at the top of the list, and the sound of lamentations echoed everywhere. It was just that the style of comments under my posts had changed. 99 points, the first person to survive Professor Shin's hands and get a near-perfect score. Is this the master's true strength? We only had to endure one test, but she took it twice. Madam, please accept my bow. The chaotic exam week finally came to an end. The students started to have free time, and they all went to the forum to eat melons. Someone had summarized the whole incident from beginning to end. So Ling Shimo is the third party? She wanted to do it, but never succeeded. Professor Shin didn't pay any attention to her. No kidding, what's wrong with her, always thinking of herself as the teacher's wife? I even thought it was real. Lin Min is also a joke. If she didn't perform comedy this tet, I wouldn't bother watching. A few days later, Ling Shimo was suddenly arrested by the police for investigation. The people were in an uproar. Ling Shimo was just committing academic fraud. I don't know who she offended, but they even investigated her essay. It's all fake data. I heard that when she was talking to the investigation team, she accidentally said something. Do you know about the incident of dropping an object from a high place at University A? She was the culprit. Shintingzhou and I rejected Ling Shimo's offer of reconciliation. Darkness gradually fell, the last ray of sunset disappeared outside the window. Shintingzhou held the box in one hand and held my hand in the other. We walked out of the office. I looked at the familiar scene outside the window. We were talking enthusiastically, but suddenly fell silent. For a moment, I suddenly felt empty. I didn't expect that a semester had passed. Shintingzhou would quit next semester. He stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" I suddenly felt reluctant. What if I go back to being a bad student next semester? Shintingzhou looked down at me, his voice warm and gentle. You study hard just because you like me? It seems so. After I finished speaking, I was a little worried. Do you think I'm shallow? Shintingzhou smiled gently. No, if that's your motivation to study right now, I'm willing to devote all my love to helping you. At that moment, I looked at Shintingzhou, my heart pounding. My eyes started to sting. Can't you really stay another semester? Tam Din Chu bent down to kiss me. Even though I really want to, but university shouldn't be a place to breed rumors. I hope you can study without distraction and learn something valuable. Outside the window, snow began to fall. Shintingzhou's countless awards and diplomas were scattered in the back seat of the car. The air conditioning was warm in the car. His slender hand slowly slid into my short skirt, his cold fingertips gently brushing past, like creating ripples on the surface of a lake. I'm glad you didn't sit on top of my homework this time. His soft laughter made my face flush. My body was almost pressed against his strong body. You don't say any more. I was completely captivated by his gentle words. The trophies on the back seat reflected the neon lights, creating shimmering streaks of light. I saw that behind that gentle shell was a deep and stormy person. What to do? I liked him more and more.